I think this is around session number 5. So welcome along, everybody, to session number 5 of, and we need to do the head rub thing, right? The polishing of the silver.
I don't want to rub it too hard because there might not be any silver
Knock
next
your
week.
headphones off. Yeah. So welcome to session number 5 of polishing the silver. For those of us that haven't met us before, this fella is...
I'm Phil Lee.
And what do you do, Phil Lee?
What do I do? I work with business owners and professional services people and highly committed salespeople who are struggling to do more 6- and 7-figure deals, James. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Why not? That's very kind of you. I do like the law of reciprocity. So for those of us that haven't met before, I'm James Michael. I'm the founder and CEO of Justified Talent. And we help small business owners to recruit their very first sales professional. Sometimes it's the second or third hire, but this one is actually their first sales professional.
So with the emphasis on professional. Yeah, I get it.
Get it right? Because most small business owners tend to try and DIY it to begin with in the belief that they're saving money.
And can I share with you what my observation has been over many years when they try to DIY it?
Mm-hmm.
So, they find a few people, they interview them, and they think, oh, we've got one here. This guy looks like Hugh Jackman. And this guy can sing and dance and act. Yeah. And he's just a lovely guy, ex-school captain. And then 3 months later, they're sitting there who they thought, scratching their heads, and they're looking at who they thought was Hugh Jackman, and they're actually looking at Norman Gunston, or if you don't remember Norman Gunston, Mr. Bean. And they're wondering, how did Hugh Jackman transform into Mr. Bean or Norman Gunston in 3 months? It's an impossibility, but it's happened. Right. And unfortunately, we've been paying his way.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And, $1 for every business owner that has ever uttered the words in front of me of, but he was so good at the interview.
There you go.
Yeah, made his first sale right there and then.
Yeah, the only one.
Yeah. Mate, I wanted to ask you a question. And obviously this is the 5th in our series and we're kind of pottering along wherever we go. I've got this question kind of rambling around in my mind at the moment, and it probably goes to the Jackman, Gunston, Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
Mistake. What are some of the telltale signs that you know of somebody who is a sales underperformer? And not the bleedingly obvious one, like the person who's doing nothing, right? But the one who's just kind of Malcolm in the middle.
Okay. Well, look, it's a really good question. Look, outside of the bleeding obvious, the sort of person who's underperforming generally, and they're not doing the things that they should be doing, that you want them to be doing, is basically doing one or two, or probably a combination of these things. So I'll use another sort of funny sort of terminology if I can. So they're usually either getting ready to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Getting ready to get ready. Yeah. So, they're doing everything but the things that they really should be doing. So, and why are they doing that? It's because they're more comfortable, working on the marketing piece, or they're more comfortable generating a proposal or answering, an RFP, just sitting there doing the research. They're more comfortable doing all that sort of stuff than actually being in front of potential decision makers and asking the sort of hard questions to determine, do I really have someone here who may turn out to be a customer or client or not? Mm-hmm. So they're getting ready to get ready. They're doing all sorts of things. They need this right, or we don't have the right collateral. So they're busy designing the new collateral. They're doing all sorts of stuff. They're busy, but they're not doing the right sort of stuff, the cutting edge stuff. And which then leads into the second thing I wanted to share is, if they are seeing people, they've become a professional visitor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So what does that mean, professional visitor? Well, they're okay calling on people who they like, who like them, that are prepared to chat and while away the time and talking about various things and maybe a little bit of business thrown in. But usually the person they're visiting is not a decision maker, because decision makers don't like spending time just chewing the fat. They're out there making decisions and trying to grow their business.
Yep.
So yeah, so they're the telltale signs. They're not doing the cutting edge stuff and the cutting behaviors, activities, if you like. They're avoiding them. And if they say, well, yeah, I went out, last week and I saw 4 or 5 different people, they're usually people that they're really comfortable with, that are happy to see them, but it's not really moving them forward in a business sense. Usually not going to result in business.
Yep, absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree with both of those examples. And I think by way of comparison, if I go to the other end of the scale, when you take somebody who is a consistent high performer, one of the key things you notice about a consistent high performer, someone who's highly competent, highly confident, and highly committed?
I think you're going to tell me.
I am.
So I'm going to say, what's that, James?
Good on you. Thank you. I love that segue. Primarily what you notice about them is that you don't notice them, right?
I like that.
Because they're out doing the do.
They're out stuff.
Right? They're out doing the do. So conversely, that person who's kind of sitting around the middle, who is not a high performer, they're not the abject failure just yet, but they're kind of stuck. You see lots of them. They're hanging around the bloody office all the time, right? And seemingly busy doing what? Certainly not.
Look, I got to put my hand up. I've been like that. Yep. So, I know both sides of the fence. That's why I really like coaching, to be very frank with you.
Yeah.
Because, I say in my book, The Game Changer, which I said I prominently placed on that bookshelf so people could see it. And you said, what book? So I've taken it down now. But, I said, look, I've had, just about every issue that anyone's ever had. Thankfully, I've worked through a number of them. I'm still working through some of them. So I get it, I remember when I first started in professional selling, it was in the early 80s. I was working with a big American computer company, and it was tough. We were competing against IBM. Remember, you never got fired for buying IBM. That's right. So it was IBM and everybody else. That's right, Big Blue. And our sales director, they thought this was clever. They got us all ties. And on the tie, there was an acronym, and it was Y, C, D, B, S, O, Y, A. I can't even remember what it was, but but what it all stands for is what it was is an acronym for you can't do business sitting on your ass.
Okay.
Yeah, meaning exactly to your point.
Yeah.
We don't want you in the office.
Yeah.
Right. Now we don't want you. We don't want to see you. We want you to be out talking to people who can potentially buy what we have got to sell.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And again, correlating to that, I had a really interesting conversation with somebody. It's a good number of years ago now, but it was the managing director of a consulting firm who began to complain to me. He had just received the phone bills for the month, and he was complaining to me about one of his reps. His phone bill was through the roof, right? And he was really, really kind of annoyed with that. And I said to him, so just out of interest, where does this guy sit in your performance curve? He said, oh, he's actually one of my highest performers. I said, okay, isn't that interesting? Just out of interest, your lowest performer, what are their dials like? What are their phone call numbers like? Bugger all. Yeah, I wonder what that might tell you.
Well, that tells you a lot of things, unless the guy was calling his girlfriend overseas. But maybe he was doing both. But here's the thing, who cares? Seriously, I mean, that's what attracted me to sales, professional sales, in the first place. Is like, if you're any good, nobody can tell you what to do. Like, if you're good, okay, you've got to be a sort of a team player, and there's a cultural aspect to that, and you can't be a big head, and but all that aside, and that's all very, very true. If you're performing, well, mate, no one's going to kick you out. And if you're performing, and you're doing really well, and you figured out, how can I do this and still have some time off to do stuff by myself or for myself? You can do that.
Yep.
That
100%.
like blew my mind. I had these other friends of mine who were working like, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. I was working hard, but I had a lot of flexibility. And at the same time, at that time, I was making more money. So very happy.
Results count, right?
Results count. And of course, the key things are getting out and speaking to the people who can potentially make a decision to buy what you have. Now, the average guy doesn't like doing it. We know that. So I'm not telling you anything new for sure. And I'm not telling anyone who's listening this, mostly, I'm not telling them anything new. They don't like that. That's uncomfortable for them. So, as a coach, one of the things that I'm doing with people who are committed to going to that next level, doing 6 and 7 figure deals or doing more of them, is you're not going to do it if you're staying in your current comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's part of it.
Yeah. So let's go back to what I'll describe as Malcolm in the middle. And I guess in particular, what I'm keen to do, because a lot of my clients are small business owners, they themselves are not professional salespeople. They've certainly never been professional sales managers. And yet by default, they are now sales managers because they've got salespeople.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that Malcolm in the middle is saying that are some of the smoke grenades that are designed to kind of fool the boss into believing that they're doing stuff?
Oh, well, they're just making stuff up, Bottom line is, they're just lying about, fundamentally about what they're doing and who they're doing it with. Forecasts are just, lick your finger and stick it up and sort of say something that's going to sound positive and have the non-sales manager owner feeling a bit more positive or relieving a little bit of stress. Yep. So, they're just bottom line. Look, I don't like saying this because it's a little bit derogatory, but often, very averagely performing salespeople are like children.
Right.
And, like you say to your teenage kids, if you tidied your room up, you've done it. Yeah, well, if you haven't done it, you can't go out. Look, look, I've done it. And if you go up there and check and it's not done, look, I'll do it later. Just sort of let me out. So, I don't want to be too disparaging, but, average, look, quite simply, you don't have to be a genius to figure this one out. I'm not even sure who said it, but it doesn't really matter. It's just that successful people do the things that not unsuccessful people won't or don't do.
Yeah.
So all you got to do is, if you want to say, so what are they saying? They're telling them the things they like to hear, or they think they want to hear. This deal's about to close. This will happen in a couple of weeks. Well, you told me that a month ago. Yeah, I know, but it's, believe me, it's all coming through. They've just got to do this, they've got to do that. They're getting the budget just approved. They're all going to happen. And in the meantime, they're just hoping that it's going to happen. And unfortunately, it doesn't work some of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So
does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make complete and utter sense. And I want to try and give a contrary example if I can, and this might put you on the spot just a moment.
Yeah.
Right? But you're a good tap dancer, so I'm sure you'll roll with it.
Yeah, not that you haven't put me on the spot already.
Have I not? Okay, I'll try really, really hard now. Have you got a number in mind that you want to generate in terms of revenue between now and, say, the end of the financial year, or now and the end of the calendar year? Yeah, you.
You're talking about me personally. Yes, I do. Am I going to share it with you? No.
No, that's fine. I don't want you to share it with me. But you've got you know the number, right?
Yes, I do. I have a number in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I have written it down.
Right. Do you know exactly the amount of activity that you need to put in to get that number?
I have. Look, I'm going to be really honest, because I don't like fooling people. I could be more, a little bit more analytical than I am around this. My situation's probably a bit different. I'm 65. I have a few other things that are happening. I know what I want to do, and I'm probably, in all honesty, a bit too relaxed about it. But having said that, yes, I do have an idea of what I need to do. Am I as prescriptive and detailed and analytical about it as I could be. No, but when I was, for many, many years, when I had a budget and I was trying to grow a business and I was all over that stuff, which by the way, it's not that comfortable, it's not that comfortable for me given my natural sort of behavior style.
Yep.
And which to a point is there are many salespeople that are somewhat similar to me. Like they go in sales because they like people.
Yep.
And, they like to talk to people and they like to, spend time with people and they sort of sit down and, okay, let's work out what activities you have to do to make your number, which is really important. And that's why you brought it up. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not great at that. They actually avoid it because it's sort of not their favorite sort of thing. So I hope that answers your questions. I might ask you the same question. I would expect a somewhat different answer.
Yeah, I have clarity about the numbers that I'm wanting to bring into the business, and I've got clarity around, the nature and the numbers of the activity that will typically, for me, generate that outcome. Are the sands shifting at the moment? Yes, they are, and so the numbers are probably going to need to be bumped up to some degree. But I guess, the point to my question was really around, and I use this in our recruitment side of the business and in our screening and selection. One of the telltale questions that I find really helps us define, who is the professional salesperson and who's the person who's been in a sales job, two different people, right? Is that the professional salesperson can answer like you did confidently, yes, I know the number. Now, can they articulate on the spot what the backwards planning numbers are, the reverse engineering? Not with absolute articulation, because a bit like you, they're a little bit more opportunistic, right? But they know what the big number is, right? And they know what they did last quarter and they know what they did the quarter before. There's no hesitation.
Well, here's the thing. If you're a sales professional, the term professional denotes that you do this for a living.
Yeah.
So it's your living.
Yeah.
And, I think it's a no-brainer to have actually, not only in your mind, but written down. What's your target? What are you looking to achieve?
Yep.
And then figure out, okay, well, how am I going to do it? Now, if you can't figure out how you're going to do it, whether you're a business owner or a sales professional, and you're serious, you've got two options. One's get out of it. Plenty of people do that. If you're serious, another option might be get some help, because like in most other professions, the right coaching can make a huge difference.
Yep, absolutely can, 100%. Okay, so as we've decided to keep these SAS short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of roll this one up here. But
can I do this before you roll it up?
Yeah.
So let's just sort of reiterate, what's your top out of the chat that we just had? And maybe we'll put this on our little grab on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the average salesperson versus the high performer, what the average person does and doesn't do. What's your key takeaway or key message for people that might be listening, James?
Cool. So key messages are, if you're seeing a lot of your salesperson in your office and your customers are not people who come to your office, and yes, there's a little bit more of that at the moment because of COVID, but normally, if you're seeing a lot of your salespeople in your office or salesperson in your office, that's a telltale sign that they're not going to be the superstar you want them to be. If you see them spending lots and lots and lots of time on things other than sales conversations, that's another telltale sign. And if they can't articulate to you that they know what their number is, if you were to stop them and say, what's your number this quarter? And they can't tell you. And if they can't even tell you what they made last quarter, that's another telltale sign.
All right. And if I can I agree with all of that. And I would have said the same thing. And the other thing I would say is, if you've got something like that, is show me your activity. Yep. Show me the activity you've done for this week and the last few weeks. I want to see what it is. Right. And this is fair income. I want to see your diary.
Yeah.
See what you're doing. And not as a stick, but really the role of a manager is to help you, is
Good.
to help you grow and develop and be better than you could be by yourself. So if they balk at that, well, I'd have a think of, do I have the right person?
Absolutely right. All righty. So, folks, as we wrap it up, of course, if you have somebody and you reckon they've still got the goodness in them and it's just not getting brought out, there's a bloke I know, his name's Phil Lee. He's written a book called The Game Changer, and he will absolutely bring the very best out of those who've got it. If you're looking for somebody brand new, once you've got rid of Malcolm in the Middle, then of course I'll help you out as well, because I help small businesses recruit their first sales professionals.
All right. I'm happy to have a chat with anyone, James. No promises, because we really, there's a whole lot of things have to be in place before I say, look, I think I can help you.
Yeah, you've got to do the diagnostics. So we'll put some links in the comments below, folks. Speak to you soon.
Great talking to you. Cheers.